Good evening. I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and I'm pleased to welcome you all here tonight for the February 11, 2015 Brighton Town Board meeting. As always, we welcome participation at our meetings, and in just a moment we will be holding our open forum, which is an opportunity for anyone to address the board on any matter, whether or not it's on our agenda tonight. Speaking of the agenda, I would note that for those of you that are here in the room, the agenda for tonight's meeting, as well as a complete packet of all of the supporting materials, is on the table in the back of the room. Now, for those of you that are watching at home on your cable or on streaming on the internet, the complete agenda and backup materials are available for your review at the Town of Brighton's website, and that's townofbrighton.org. townofbrighton.org. That's Town of Brighton, all one word. Now, if you are at home watching on your computer or TV and you'd like to call in when we start the open forum, the telephone number is 303-3060. Someone will take your call, relay your question or your comment to us, and we'll try to address it. And as is always the case, if we can't address your question tonight when you ask it, we will make sure that somebody gets back to you, whether it's myself or the appropriate staff member gets back to you to try to answer your questions. Now, if you are deaf or hearing impaired, we do have a TDD line for you to participate in our open forum. The TDD line number is 784-5205. Again, TDD 784-5205. And as always, we look forward to hearing from you with any comments or questions. Now, we do occasionally experience technical difficulties during the live broadcast, and if that happens, please call Time Warner Cable at 756-5000. Again, that's 756-5000. Now, if there is an emergency, you'll hear the town hall emergency alarm system. Please exit the auditorium immediately, and you can do that either through the door to my right, marked exit. If you go out that door, turn right, go downstairs, out the rear entrance of Town Hall, and move away from the building. Or you can leave by either one of the two double doors at the rear of the room, go straight through the lobby, out the front doors of Town Hall, down the steps, and away from the building. We'll begin before the meeting starts with a pledge to the flag. Tonight I'm going to invite Bing Reeves, who is the commander of the Buffalo Soldiers, who we will be recognizing in just a moment. Bing, if you would come up to the podium and lead us all in the pledge to the flag. Please stand, everybody.
Please stand. Follow me in a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Don't go anywhere, Bing. I don't have a lot of room here on the podium tonight, but it's February, and although Black history is important and relevant to us as Americans 12 months of the year, back in 1976, President Ford issued the first proclamation of a Black History Month, and since that time we have been honoring, studying, learning about Black history. In this community, one of the prime groups that has been instrumental in bringing the history of African Americans, and particularly African Americans in the military, to our attention are the Buffalo Soldiers. And so it's only fitting tonight that I present the Brighton Town Board African American History Month proclamation to the Buffalo Soldiers, and I'd like to read that first. Whereas Black History Month is celebrated during the month of February each year, the month in which both Abraham Lincoln and our own Frederick Douglass were born, to, and I quote, seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history, as President Gerald Ford said in 1976 when he proclaimed the first Black History Month in America. Or whereas, following the Civil War, the first peacetime African American Army units were established, becoming the 9th and 10th Cavalry Regiments and the 24th and 25th Infantry Regiments. And those units were sent to fight Native Americans in the American West. Whereas so brave and courageous were these men that their legendary Native American opponents, who greatly respected the African American soldiers' brave and powerful combat skills, compared them to their much revered buffalo and often referred to them as buffalo soldiers. And whereas the buffalo soldier tradition and their reputation for honor, respect, and discipline, as well as the tradition of other African American fighting units, such as the Tuskegee Airmen, remained intact until desegregation of the armed services by President Truman during the Korean War. Whereas in Rochester and in Brighton, this legacy is kept active by the Buffalo Soldiers, whose patriotic activities help educate us about African American military history. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and all the members of the Brighton Town Council, do hereby proclaim February as Black History Month in Brighton and recognize, honor, and thank the Buffalo Soldiers for their part in our nation's history, and the Buffalo Soldier Honor Guard for keeping the memory and the traditions of the Buffalo Soldiers alive today. And this proclamation is signed this 11th day of February 2015 by myself and the members of the Brighton Town Board. I just want to say a couple more words because this group, the Buffalo Soldiers, have been active participants in some very important events here in the town of Brighton. Each year on Pearl Harbor Day, our parks and our recreation departments hold an event for veterans, mostly from the VA facility here in Brighton. These are folks that have earned our respect, and the Buffalo Soldiers Color Guard posts colors at that event. In our bicentennial this past year, in our bicentennial parade, the parade was led by the Buffalo Soldier Color Guard carrying the colors of our nation. And in fact, just this Sunday, well, we were hoping to hear Bing and the Buffalo Soldiers as part of our Brighton History series at the Buckland House. Unfortunately, Mother Nature had other ideas, and we were snowed out, but we will be rescheduling that event so that you have an opportunity to hear more about the legacy of the Buffalo Soldiers. I do also want to acknowledge that we have other veterans and veterans groups represented here in the audience supporting the great work of the Buffalo Soldiers. Al Smith, thank you, and of course our own Jim Vogel, who has been very instrumental in veterans activities. So let me present this to you, Bing, and invite you and other members of the Buffalo Soldiers to say a few words. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to thank the town of Brighton and your illustrious supervisor for giving us this proclamation. I'm just one of the members of the Buffalo Soldiers, and one of the most important people in my Buffalo Soldier group is Charlie Price here, which was a Buffalo Soldier, was a Tuskegee Airman, is a Buffalo Soldier, and is a Tuskegee Airman, and was the first African-American police officer in the city of Rochester. So, a lot of the history that you get from him comes firsthand. Him actually being there. I won't tell his age. I have Mr. Danny Wyatt here, which is a retiree from Kodak. You do remember that place, Kodak? Well, Mr. Danny White worked there for years and he retired from Kodak. But he is one of my chief presenters when we give that history of the Buffalo Soldiers. So I didn't do it myself. We've been in existence now for about 12 years. We love bringing that history. We love coming to Brighton. And hopefully I'll see a lot of you come in this Sunday at the Buckland House at 2 p.m. That's on Westfall Road, right next to Buckland Park. It's the farmhouse up there. Okay? Guys, got anything to say? Thank you very much, Bill. Come on, hold you up any longer.
Ben, thank you so much. Thank you all for your service to the community, and thank you for helping us to all reflect on and remember the great history of African Americans in our military. Thank you. Next on our agenda, and before the open forum portion of the meeting, we are going to have a presentation from the Daniele family concerning their proposal for redevelopment of Clover Lanes, that property, and the adjoining properties, including the existing Mario's Restaurant, Mama San's, and some additional property. And of course, as you no doubt heard today, included in that proposal would be a Whole Foods store. Now, I do want to make sure that everybody knows that there will be no action taken by the town board on this proposal tonight. And in fact, we have not yet received a formal written proposal for review of this project, although we do expect that within the next week or so. But tonight, the Danieles will be informally presenting this project and their plans to the community. They will also be holding a neighborhood meeting, and I know you've reached out to your neighbors for a meeting that will be held at Mario's Restaurant on February 23rd at 5:30 in the evening, and that will be their meeting at which they will review this proposal with the neighborhood. I think it's important to note that the town board and the planning board, once a proposal is received, will both be reviewing this proposal along with town staff. And most importantly, there will be one or more public hearings on this project where anyone can come in and voice their questions, their comments, their concerns about this project for the record for consideration by the town board. Only after all of those things happen, including the environmental review of this project, will the town board be in a position where it can even consider voting on the proposal. I think it's important to note that although we'll be seeing this proposal tonight, it's certainly more than likely that there will be changes to the proposal, as there generally are, before the town board formally votes on it. So at this time, I'm going to let the Daniele, members of the Daniele family introduce themselves. I believe they have a slideshow that they're going to present, so I'm going to suggest that those of us on the board go out into the audience and give you the opportunity to make your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and all the board members, council, and the guests and residents who've come out today in the cold weather and the snow. My name is Danny Daniele. This is my brother, Anthony Daniele. My father, Mario, couldn't be with us tonight. He's out of town. Tonight, we'll be giving you a brief presentation of the project, which we're calling the Clover Lanes redevelopment. That's where this project is stemmed from. And bear with us as we go through the slides. Thank you for the lights. It's the Daniele family. This is our family crest, passion, intensity, culture. We're humbled today to be able to have the opportunity to present this project to the town. We also understand that this is a presentation. We'll be submitting a proposal, and we're hoping that the town board members and the town will look into the project in a fair and equitable way, and hopefully we can move forward with a great project in one way or another. We hope to find an end that will be amicable on every side. To start with, this is a slide showing the Clover Lanes as it stands today. This is the crux of where the project began. As we've grown, and I'll get to in a moment, we've included the Mario's restaurant pad site, and then we've also included at this point the Mama San's restaurant. This is an overhead view showing the Monroe Avenue corridor, and you can see where the Clover Lanes is the big white box in the middle, and there's two parcels to the left and to the right, and that's where we'll be focusing this project, this Clover Lanes redevelopment on. Originally, we had talked about putting a hotel, a four-star hotel. Unfortunately, some of the zoning laws prohibit the use of a hotel given the financial obligations of that area. So we kind of took that and put that to the side. We've had many different plans that we started with over almost a year ago. This is one version of the plan. We also looked at the possibilities of just keeping the bowling alley as it is, refurbishing it, and leasing it out in its current state. However, one of the biggest roadblocks we hit was the age of the building. It was built in 1952. It's a wooden truss system. Pardon me if I don't know the exact language. But it has reached the end of its useful life. That doesn't mean that it won't stay for another 15, 20, 30, 50 years if we want it to. However, the safety becomes an issue, and with new tenants, it brought up some concerns. Also, we looked at the fact that this is a wonderful site, and that may not be the best use for that site. We've got the next slide here, which shows probably about the 7th or 8th rendition, which is still focused solely on the Clover Lane site. And this is one of the first ideas we presented to the planning board, I think maybe 6 or 7 months ago. And during that presentation, we had a lot of positive comments on it, but two comments that stood out were the planning board had asked if we had taken a look at the what's called the Monroe Avenue Corridor Vision Plan, which is something, frankly, at that point we really hadn't looked into. The other comment that came up was, you know, this looks like a great plan, but it seems like it's sandwiched in between two different parcels, and unfortunately, you can't see the depth of it here, but there's a lot of setback restrictions. There's issues with properties abutting the other properties. So they asked us to go back and take a look at some different options, and by doing that, we moved to the next phase. One of the items that they brought up was this Monroe Avenue Corridor Vision Plan that we needed to take a better look at, in which we agreed. That plan was began the process in 2009. The town of Brighton hired the RRCDC to begin working on the charrette, and that charrette began in 2009. It went through 2010, and it was finally completed in 2011. The planning board, the Brighton Town Planning Board, Mr. Bill Price, helped lead that, along with our very own Judy Schwartz, who's in attendance today. I believe she was also on that board. And they spent a tremendous amount of time working with residents and different designers, different consultants to figure out what would be the best use of that corridor, given the traffic concerns, the pedestrian, commercial. And at the end of that long process, this is what they came out with for this area. So this is in the Monroe Avenue Corridor Community Vision Plan, which the planning board asked us to take a look at. And we spent some time looking at this plan, and I'll spend a couple minutes on this one. One of the first things that popped out on us was right over here. You'll see a traffic light. And we didn't know if the possibility of a traffic light was the right thing to do, but with this plan, it kind of gave us an idea of, hey, this is something that a lot of people have put some thought into, and it's not a bad idea. The other aspect on this, and I'll use my laser pointer, you'll see on the south end over here, right now these properties on the southern side of Monroe Avenue are not connected, so they all have their own individual curb cut. What this plan is suggesting is that some way they connect in the rear side or the front side so that we can eliminate curb cuts on Monroe Avenue to help protect the safety of Monroe Avenue, the flow of Monroe Avenue, and it gives this cross access for guests and customers of these businesses to be able to go from one to the other without having to go back on the main corridor of Monroe Avenue. They did the same thing on the north side, and you'll see behind, this is the Clover Lanes building here, that's Mario's, and this is the Mama San's. And you'll see behind there's another stretch of roadway which currently exists today, which is fortunate. This below on the southern side does not exist. On the northern side it does currently exist. There's access to Clover Street and there's access to Allen's Creek. Those roads are currently being used for those that may live in the area. You've probably seen cars and especially buses going in and out. The Clover Lanes, they have quite a few tournaments with school children. This is a picture we took one night. There's usually a few dozen buses out there. And rather than going out onto Monroe Avenue, they often go out these side roads. And it's turned out to be a great convenience. One of the only drawbacks to that is, and this is what it looks like during the day, this is also the pedestrian access. It's a permanent easement that the town has, that this must always remain open for pedestrian access. And it also is used, as you can see, for vehicles to travel through. These are some more shots of behind the property of what it currently looks like. Well, not today, because today you can't see anything because it's all white. But generally, when the sun's out and it's not wintertime, this is what it looks like. This is a rainy day, but you'll see pedestrians going through here, going from one property to the next. There's a tremendous amount of joggers from the town of Brighton that use it. We're going to have some statements from them. They're not here this evening. It's not a big deal, but these are some other shots in that back area. This is on the other end, now crossing Clover Street. This is what they've done on the east side of Clover Street. Same situation, but it's been divided by a safety gate or safety rail, if you will, so that the vehicles can travel on one side and the pedestrians on another. And these are just a few shots showing different examples of that area, which works out very, very well. This is another slide here that shows what you can do if there's a grade change, which we obviously have a bit of a grade change behind our property as well. This is going back to that aerial view, and now with the magic of photography, we're going to show you what the plan that we have today looks like on this property. So if you look at the white box in the middle, that's the Clover Lanes, and you'll see magically appear, this is a basic plan of what we're looking at to redevelop. And I'll go backwards again. You can see the different buildings that are there and how they'll be repositioned in a sense. What this doesn't show is anything on the southern side of Monroe Avenue, which, if you remember, the vision plan for Brighton, for the Monroe Avenue was to connect those businesses on the south side. So this next slide, if you focus on the south side, there's a red building. That was the old Pizza Hut. Look just south of those, and you'll see on the back side there where now we've kind of developed, this is a conceptual plan showing how that would look if those businesses had access in the back. And the planning board, and I believe some other members of the town, had mentioned that that's going to be something that's very important, especially if you're going to have this traffic light here to make it much more accessible for vehicles to enter and exit throughout those properties. So that's something that we've added into the project. To give you an idea of how many plans we've used to get to the point we're at today, a lot of people often think that a developer just comes up with an idea and they just threw that at the board. These are different ideas that we've used, and our architect is here from Kosich Engineering, and he wasn't very happy in certain ways because every day we'd call him to make changes, but on the other end, we have a great relationship because every time we'd have a conversation about changing a plan, it was always for a very good reason. And these are just plan after plan of what we've done. I'm slightly ADD myself, unfortunately by nature, so that I want to make sure that we come up with the very best plan that works out best for many reasons, not just for the finances of the developer, but also for the community, because at some point it's going to have to be voted on, and we don't like to take too many chances, so we want to go through as many different possibilities as we can, and this gives you a good idea of how many we went through, and this isn't even all of them. This is what we kind of landed on, and this is what you saw on that last slide with the overlay, and it's actually changed slightly from that even. This is a couple weeks old, but in general, this is the main site plan here. I'm going to show you a couple slides here of some ideas that we've given the architects to start designing the buildings with. The idea is to create a higher end looking retail center. We don't want to just put up a big box store with a parking lot. We want to create something that is something memorable for Monroe County, something memorable for Brighton. This is the gateway of Brighton. coming from Pittsburgh going on to 590. So these aren't photos of what we're going to build. These are photos similar to the ideas and concepts that we're handing towards our architects to come through to bring us. You'll see some different shapes. My father, I guess, started the trend when we built Mario's back in 1995. We had a lot of conceptual plans that showed just some good-looking buildings, and my father always wanted to keep pushing and pushing to make something that would really be something stand out. So these are some conceptual plans. Back when we talked about the hotel concept, when we went back to the town and we realized that the hotel may not be the best thing for us to do in that site, we started taking some very informal surveys and talking to a lot of different people in the town. And one of the ideas that kept coming up, frankly, was the possibility of another grocery store. And the first thing that we thought is, there's a lot of grocery stores on this stretch. Why do we need another grocery store? And some comments were, well, there's a lot of burger places. Why do we need another burger place? Why do we need another pizza place? Why do we need another restaurant? One of the things that brings beauty to our country, if you will, without getting sentimental, is the choices that we have. For some reason, another choice for a supermarket came to the top. These are some different companies that we had talked to that showed some interest in the property. As you may have heard, this last slide here shows a company that is moving forward with the process. It's a long way ahead, and we're hoping that within a reasonable amount of time we can get to where we need to be to consummate the final process. Without getting into too far details, we're looking to do an incentive zoning project here. We'll be asking for some green space, density, zoning, relocation and pedestrian access, drive-through use or uses. This is part of an incentive zoning process, which as we move along the process, you'll hear different people speaking about. We've got proposed amenities to the town. This would be items such as enhancing, repairing, and not really constructing a trail, it's already there, but making it a safer place, more lighting, adding a traffic signal to Monroe Avenue per the Charette Vision Plan. And one of the biggest things is dedicating or preserving 1 acre of Clover Street, which is right behind our property, to create a much bigger buffer between the residential neighborhood and this project. Right now, if you were to look at the project from Clover Street, you can see through some of the trees, and what we want to do is make that buffer much thicker to give it some privacy. Another item which is a pro to any kind of construction development, increasing the property taxes by almost $250,000 a year. Currently, those 3 properties combined pay approximately $190,000 a year. The future project, as you've seen, will be paying $438,000. The difference is $248,000. Those are rough estimates. We believe they're on the conservative side, but they're pretty close to what will probably happen. That's the majority of the slideshow. What I want to show you is one other thing that came in today. Pardon me, I'm just going to walk over to the computer. And these are, these are some renderings. Unfortunately, you probably can't see them too well, but you'll be able to see them soon, showing some different views of what this plaza would look like. These are not the final plans by any stretch. This is the first shot that some of our architects have put together. There are some other visuals as well. Again, the idea is to create something that's different than you've seen before, something that doesn't stand out as awkward, but something that stands out as, hey, you got to go take a look at that plaza. That's something really special. That's something to be proud of. That's the majority of our presentation. We're going to have Jerry Goldman come up in just a moment. My brother here, he's been standing quietly by me in case I lose my mind or forget something. If there's anything you want to add.
Just that Anthony Daniele, one of the co-owners, and my brother did a great job. And really what the bottom line for tonight is, this is conceptual. The things that you've seen up there are not necessarily our full application. Obviously, we'll be submitting that soon. But this is something exciting that the Daniele family, my brother, my father, and I, and certainly our team that we have with us, are hoping to bring to this community that really will separate this corridor, which for years and years and years has grown tired. And we've been an active part of it at Mario's. We've built the car wash at the corner. And at the end of the day, we look forward to bringing something just as special. And I think without being arrogant or cocky, I think Mario's is something special. We believe that what we ended up with at the car wash at the corner, in spite of a lot of the controversy that it created, most everybody has agreed. Camera's nodding. Is that on purpose or no? Is that all right, Steve? It was saying no. Is that not true? But I think everybody agrees that, and what we hope to bring is something just as special, just as memorable, and certainly taking into account the sensitive areas. I mean, with every project there are pros, and with every project there are cons. Our obligation to the residents of the town of Brighton and the people that drive along this corridor and live around this area, and certainly to the board members and the supervisor who have to ultimately make a decision at the end of the day to whether this is a good idea or it is not, to bring them something special that the good things outweigh the bad, and ultimately is something that we can all drive down Monroe Avenue, turn left as we're heading away from Brighton, and be proud of. So that's our goal. With that, we're going to ask Jerry Goldman, who's our legal counsel, to talk 3 minutes about the process. Where do we go from here, Jerry?
There we go. I'll speak very briefly. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, I'm Jerry Goldman. I live at 59 Branchwood Lane in the town, and I'm very proud and happy to be a part of this proposal of the Daniele family. This is a multi-step process, as the supervisor alluded to, and the Danielles have alluded to, in terms of the review and approval of this project. Tonight is the first public step with regard to it. The second public step will be a neighborhood meeting, which the supervisor indicated would be conducted on February 23rd at Mario's at 5:30. In the normal town fashion, we have received a list of all property owners located within 1,000 feet of the site, and each of those people will be receiving a mailing and an invitation to that neighborhood meeting. But that's not when it formally starts. Where it formally starts will be the submission of an application to the town. That application will go to the town board, and the town board at that point will review the application to see whether it is complete and in accordance with the town laws for the relief and the incentive zoning which is being requested. If in fact it is complete, the town board can refer the application to the planning board for their comments, again at a public meeting. And when the planning board provides a report, it then comes back to the town board for further consideration. The application that we are presenting is one for what's referred to as incentive zoning. It's a tool that has been successfully used by the town on a number of occasions, especially for large projects. And what it does is it allows the town board to take a global view of a project of this nature. As part of the incentive zoning process, there are items of relief that we are asking for as it relates to the town code. You saw a slide that dealt with that. It will address things such as signage as well. In exchange for that, in exchange for the incentives which are being sought, there are amenities which are provided by the applicant, and those amenities deal with the trail system, transportation system, and other aspects of the development itself. In addition to that, there are public benefits which are not formally fit into the amenity category, and they will be talked about throughout the process. So we do have an extended process ahead of us. We look forward to working with the town, look forward to working with the town residents and the neighbors on the particular site to come up with a project that we all can be proud of for this gateway area in the town of Brighton. With that, if there are any questions of me, and I'm sure if there are any questions of Daniele's, they would be glad to address them at this time.
Thank you, Jerry, and thank you, Danny and Anthony. Why don't we go into the open forum portion of the meeting? As you know, as I mentioned before, we do conduct the open forum as part of our meetings. I would note that if you would like to speak during the open forum, you may do so about any topic, including the presentation that you've just heard. However, I would encourage you that if you are here to speak to one of the two items that is the subject of a public hearing tonight, and that being the proposed University of Rochester institutional plan development on their South Campus, or the traffic speed limit reductions in a couple of our neighborhoods in town. If you're here for one of those hearings and would like your comments to be included in the public record of those hearings, I would encourage you to wait until we've called those hearings for you to give your comments. Now, during the open forum, I will call you if you raise your hand. Please come to the podium so the folks at home can hear you. And please state your name and address if you would, please. I would ask that you keep your comments directed to the board, although if you do have a specific question either for the Daniele family or for Mr. Goldman, you can certainly do that as well. As always, please be courteous. Please keep your comments as concise as possible. And if you do have written comments that you would like us to formally receive and file as communications at tonight's meeting, you may do so by giving them to our town clerk. So we'll now start the open forum period, and I saw a gentleman in the back of the room.
Mr.
Anthony,
Supervisor, I don't mean to disrupt, but
Sure.
there was a little bird on my shoulder that I forgot to address a specific question that I know has come up numerous times, and I just figured it would be a good
Sure.
way to end our presentation. The question is, what is going on with Mario's specifically, and as an owner, I can certainly speak to that, and the bowling alley and Mama San's, which I'll defer a little bit because they're not my businesses. But just for the record, the intent for Mario's, first of all, is, and for all three businesses that I'll speak on behalf of, business as usual. You know, there was some rumors flying around that, oh, does that mean they're closing? We're not closing. This process, as we mentioned, is a lengthy one, and it's something we're prepared for. And so business as usual for now for all three businesses. All three businesses, including Mario's, have expressed intent to stay in business and reopen in a site in the general vicinity. I know Mama San's is already a site picked out, which I won't disclose because that's her business. For Mario's, we're looking at a couple different options, one of them being actually staying right in this plaza. So that is something that we're exploring as an option. But I know that question has come up numerous times from different people, and I just wanted to put that out there to dispel any rumors or misinformation. So thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. And now I'll call on the gentleman in the rear.
Good evening again. My name is Jim Coffey. I live at 36 Midland Avenue with my wife Karen. We've been there since 1984. I wasn't going to say this, but I just need you to know that when you gave the proclamation to the Buffalo Soldiers, that I felt incredibly proud and happy that you did that. As a disabled Vietnam veteran myself, I was touched by it. So,
Thank you, Jim, and thank you for your service.
thanks. You probably remember that I'm here because of the Woodstone project and the Pinnacle Hill subdivision. And I'm trying to influence your decision-making process as you consider that process, or that program. And I want to thank you last time for assuring me that the project was not a done deal. I've attended, I know you've got the letter tonight from the planning board, and I attended the last couple of planning board meetings, and something that Mr. Price said kind of stuck in my mind. He was talking with Mr. Perrone, and he mentioned to him that when that group makes a decision, and he implied, or at least I inferred, that when you make a decision, you look out 100 years. And I always like that because I think in the Native American culture that when they make a big decision, they think about how it affects 2 or 3 generations down the road. So the 100 years stuck in my mind because my house was actually built 100 years ago. So when I went back to look at that idea, the whole little street of Midland Avenue was built 100 years ago. And at the time, I remember thinking when we first moved in, why in the world would any planning group put septic systems next to an environmentally sensitive wetlands where there's an aquifer and there's a high water table? It just seemed like a perfect storm for disaster. But I got the answer about 25 years ago. A fellow stopped by the house and he got out. He was born in that house in 1929. And he wanted to know if it was okay with my wife and I if he came in the house and showed his wife the house where he grew up, and was his nickel still in the fireplace? It wasn't, but he brought pictures. And the pictures that he had showed houses right in the middle of the wetlands. And I said, how in the world did they have that? It couldn't be. And he said, well, the wetlands weren't there then. He said they came after a huge project, I think it was in the 30s, when they built up Clinton Avenue connecting down to Elmwood, and they built houses all along the western side of it where it's now Persimmon Park. And he said that project, they had unintended consequences with the water, and everything backed up and the wetland was formed. So I'd like to just zoom forward to now, and as we look out 100 years from now, if someone is standing on my property 100 years from now, and if this project goes in, and what I'm asking for is that you require that if it goes forward, that you require that sanitary sewers be put into Midland Avenue, because if they're not done now, 100 years from now, you'll be standing on a septic system there. Our little street has only 7 houses. That's too few for a sewer district to ever afford for us to put it in ourselves. So to prevent any type of a disaster in the future, and I know that Woodstone is, I'm sure their motivations are not altruistic, that they're there to make money, and while it's easy to spend other people's money, I think it would be important for them to add the sanitary sewers to Midland to completely protect the wetlands no matter what happens, because we just can't predict what water is going to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Judy.
Judy Schwartz. I'm thrilled with all the cameras here and television stations because I have two very important programs that I'd love to promote. One is being put on by Interfaith Impact of New York State on March 15th at the Universalist Church downtown across from Jiva. And our program is called Show Me the Money, Escalating Inequality Hurts. And our speakers are Michael Kink, who's the Executive Director for Strong Economy for All Coalition, Ann Johnson, who's Director of ACT Rochester. And unfortunately, I cannot give you the name of the fast food worker who will be presenting to, because they don't get their schedules until at least a week before. So we don't know. And Bill, you were just on Evan Dawson last week on this very topic. So it's in the news more than once a day. It's really, really, really critical. So I encourage you all, March 15th, 2 o'clock, downtown Universalist Church. And secondly, BNU, Brighton Neighbors United. Supper is March 1st at Buckland Park. Reservations are due in a week. You can call me, 442-5111. I'd be happy to take your reservation. It's a lot of fun, and it's really the community coming together, and it's a good time. So March 15th and March 1st. Thanks.
Thank you, Judy. I will be there on March 1st. I look forward to it. It is a wonderful event, and you hit the nail on the head. It is the community coming together, and I do encourage people for just a nice way to meet some of your neighbors and have a good meal and a good time. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board on any subject, whether it's concerning the proposed project that you heard the Daniele family discuss, or any other matter tonight? Then hearing none, we will continue with our agenda for tonight's meeting, and we'll start. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio? Supervisor Maley?
Aye. And a motion to approve and file the town board meeting minutes for the January 14th town board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. We'll now go to the public hearings, and as I mentioned before, we do have 2 public hearings scheduled for this evening. The first public hearing is concerning the proposed speed limit local law of 2015 to reduce speeds on a number of streets in the town of Brighton. I'll read them off for you here: Elmore Road, Laconia Park, Meadow Drive, Orchard Drive, Sunset Drive, Willowdale Drive, Windhurst Drive, and those are all in the Monroe Meadows neighborhood, and Southland Drive, Doncaster Drive, Furlong Road, and Sylvia Street off West Henrietta Road in West Brighton. Dan, has the necessary legal notice been given in this matter?
Notice was published in the February 5th edition of the Brighton Pittsburgh Post.
Thank you. Notice having been duly given, I declare this public hearing open and would invite anyone to address the town board concerning the proposed local law of 2015 to reduce speed limits on those listed streets to 25 miles per hour. We have previously received petitions which have been formally received and filed at previous town board meetings, and I do recognize the town clerk, Dan Amon, who is, I think, taken off his town clerk hat.
Changing to resident hat for a moment. Daniel Amon, Elmore Road. Just wanted to encourage the board. I know this has been through Public Safety Committee and has been well vetted. Unfortunately, as we've discussed in the past, the state law doesn't allow the town to blanket drop speed limits to 25 miles an hour, so we have to go through this process. And I know my neighbors, Mary Lou, organized a informal petition to the town showing support of the neighborhood, and came and spoke to the Public Safety Committee and others, and just encourage the board to support this and help keep the neighbors a little bit safer.
Thank you, Dan. Is there anyone else that would like to address the town board on this proposed local law? Hearing none, I know the board will have a chance when we actually vote to give any comments, but is there anybody on the board that would like to put any material in the record of this public hearing at this time? We do have, I would note, the petitions that were filed previously should be considered as part of the record of this public hearing. Yes, come on, if you'd come up to the podium. We need the audience at home, and we need to get your name for the record.
Okay, sure. My name's Miriam Gross, 34 Elmore Road. Between me and my family, we've lived on Elmore Road in the same house for probably 59 years. And I can't speak for all the entire subdivision, but I can say that the area where Elmore Road is closest to, Elmore Road intersects Elmwood, has particularly had a notable change. Significantly, people coming around the corner and down the street where cars seem to appear out of nowhere, particularly from the Meadow Drive area. Not so much as you might expect from the top of Elmore Road coming down, but from the neighborhood itself. So I think part of the problem may be in terms of reminding our neighbors that there are people that are around the corner, even though they're anxious to get out of the subdivision and over to Elmwood Avenue. So I know, particularly as an example, for my neighbor Mary Lou, who's at number 40, and for me at number 34, we've often said that when we turn to back out the driveway, by the time we get down to the driveway, what looked to be safe to back out, somebody has come around the corner. So I would just say that from a historical perspective, I think there's noticed a big change, so now would be a good time. And now makes it most relevant, I think, to make that change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, would you care to comment on the notion that neighbors are often the ones that speed in a neighborhood?
I could make a general statement, but that's what we seem to find when we go into a neighborhood that's been identified as problematic. Our first sampling is to do a data sample that will show us that there is a problem, and then we will go into an education/enforcement phase. And we find, particularly in the enforcement phase, that surprisingly, the problem comes from residents in the neighborhood. So our approach here would be, if you do approve the reduction in speed limit, would to be a education phase first, and then the enforcement phase.
Thank you. And for the record, that was Brighton Police Chief Mark Henderson. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board on this matter? Yes.
I'm Mary Lou Lockmeyer, who live on Elmore Road, and 43 of us signed petitions. One of the reasons for reducing the speed limit is our neighborhood is changing, but even if it weren't, there are more young children on our street. And we have done some research, and they've shown the difference in accidents of bodily damage that's done between 25 miles per hour versus 30 miles per hour. And it's significant. And with so many more children, besides the rest of us, we'd like you to consider this of lowering, of course, from 25 to 30 miles per hour, if you would, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the town board on this proposed speed limit local law of 2015? Hearing none, then I declare this public hearing to be closed, and I would ask for a motion to consider the adoption of the speed limit local law 2015 that you have in front of you. And by the way, now that we're off the clock, I realized I meant to note, again, as you see, we all have electronic gizmos in front of us. And just in tonight's meeting, that saved approximately 1,500 paper copies of documents that we would otherwise have piled up in front of us. So that's something that we've begun doing this year, and it's the least we can do. So, but again, can I have a motion to adopt that proposed local
Yes,
law?
Bill, with respect to adopting speed limit local law 2015 to reduce speed limits on particular streets, I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Any further discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Thank you, and thank you for taking the time to put together the petitions. I know the folks from West Brighton couldn't be here tonight, but I thank them as well for taking the time to address a safety issue in both of these neighborhoods. And you've heard from the chief, and we do take traffic safety issues, particularly neighborhood speeding, very seriously. So thank you very much. Next public hearing is on the proposed incentive zoning and rezoning application for the University of Rochester's proposed institutional plan development project. The project sometimes referred to as their South Campus project. This is a public hearing that began last week and last meeting rather, 2 weeks ago, and was continued to tonight's meeting. As you recall, at the last meeting, the university made a presentation to the community, and we heard comments both from members of the audience as well as from the town board. We have held that public hearing open. I can say that it's my intention to hold the public hearing open for at least one more meeting. But at this time, I declare that this public hearing is open. Tom, sure.
Tom Greiner, Nixon Peabody, Clinton Square, Rochester, here on behalf of the university. I'll be very, very brief, 3 minutes. I wanted to just segue from the last meeting off of a comment that Mrs. Navros made, a question, and then we had a little bit of a discussion, and I thought it bore some emphasis, and that was what is in front of the town is a rezoning with incentive zoning treatment, and there is no project other than the imaging building, and that of course is not part of the rezoning per se. It would be a planning board approval following any action by the town board to rezone the property. But the rest of the property, in terms of the town board's action, is really setting the table. It would change the zoning, but there's not any project that's actually either on the board, drawing boards, or would be part of the town board's action other than the implementation of a number of the amenities. And I think that's important to emphasize. Obviously, there's not too many people here tonight. There may be some on the watching on the television. But it's important to emphasize that this really is setting the table for action principally by the planning board over the next number of decades. And when I was thinking of that, I also had a map of New York in front of me, and coincidentally, and it was a county map. And I looked and I must have had time on my hands. I counted. I've done zoning projects in 52 of the 62 counties in the state of New York in my career so far, including some of the metro New York City counties. And that means I've been actually in front of hundreds of municipalities during this time. And I will tell you that, and there's a connection here between the first part of what I said and what I'm saying now, although it may not be anything but obscure, that the town of Brighton, its staff, and I'll say its boards as well, over the years I've practiced certainly, is one of the more protective towns I've seen out of those hundreds, where I've actually been, bloody night after bloody night. And I think it's a tribute to the town that you have boards and a very dedicated staff that has as its primary purpose the protection of its citizens. And the connection, of course, is that you also have, I think, an applicant. You have a great institution, the University of Rochester, that tries to do the job right when it does a job. And I guess I would say, and I couldn't think of this, there's the perfect storm, but then there's the sort of the opposite, the perfect calm, the perfect, and I think that's what you have here. You have a town that is professional and has a very, very clear mission with its citizenry, and you have an institution that has a very clear vision of its mission and its zeal to get it right. And so when you marry those two things, those players and the fact that this is, if the town board enacts it, a rezoning that will simply set the table for later scrutiny by not just the planning board, but say principally the planning board, with environmental review, with its usual sound planning review, that zeal, that professionalism in an institution like this, the next number of decades should yield some very, very good and sound development. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Tom. And you're right. I mean, as you said, primarily the planning board. There are, a few scenarios in which the town board could be actively involved over that time. Certainly any proposed significant amendment to the incentive zoning proposal. Perhaps, as we've talked about at length, the environmental review under SEQR, the State Environmental Quality Review Act, was done through a so-called generic environmental impact statement that contemplates a project that is done in stages, and it makes a good faith effort to anticipate the significant environmental impacts of those various stages, to measure them, and as necessary devise mitigation for them to the extent that something changes dramatically and the environmental impacts materially exceed because of changes in the project what had been anticipated through the generic process, that there might be a need for supplemental environmental review that the town board would be involved in. But I think your assessment of it is correct, that the analogy of setting the table is a good one. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address this public hearing concerning the proposed University of Rochester institutional plan development? Does anybody on the board have questions? Again, and I would note that we will be holding this public hearing. We will continue to hold it open. Is there anyone that has any additional questions or comments at this time?
I'd like to thank Mr. Greiner for his compliments. That we know we're great, but I'm glad that I should say conscientious, not great. We don't hear it back very often that somebody picked up on that.
Well, and I think, Louise, it was nice of Tom to pat, collectives, group of people on the back. But what you were really doing, and how I really take it, is that you were patting this entire Brighton community on its back, because it is members of the Brighton community, whether they're here, whether they're watching at home, or whether they're not here, that weigh in on projects over time, that really are the ones. Oh, you can leave that open, please, just so there's no question that this is an open meeting. Thank you, Anthony. That it is the involvement of the residents of Brighton and sometimes people from outside Brighton who provide oversight and input into all of the projects that we see, the decisions that we have, and no doubt including the project that was first presented to us tonight. So, is there anyone else that would like to address the board during the hearing at this time?
I think the only thing I'd say is that we've discussed it at length is the importance of the buffer zone and elevations. So we're going forward with the plans. Those are foremost in the minds of our constituents, I can tell you that. And so we'll look forward to more discussion in the future here.
Thank you.
So we're going to keep this open until
We are going to keep it open. Yeah.
Until the next meeting. Okay.
Just for a clarification on the timing, we'll keep it open. We'll have at least one more public hearing.
Correct.
And then about how long will it be before the closing of the public hearing until there's a vote on the proposal?
The only thing I can say with some level of certainty is that we won't vote on the night that we close the public hearing. Yeah. Really the purpose of this public hearing, of course, is to give us the opportunity to, hear from the public, hear answers to questions that the university has, get answers to our questions in a public setting. And once the public hearing is closed, we'll have the opportunity to ruminate on what we've heard and make some decisions on that basis. So
you will have time.
Yes, we will.
I would have used the word digest, but we'll have some time.
Same, pretty close.
Thanks.
Anybody else? If not, then public hearing is closed, and we will continue the public hearing at our next meeting, which will be 7 o'clock on February 25th. Actually, we'll do the public hearing at 7:30 on February 25th.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next on the agenda are communications. We have one item of communication. Can I have a motion to receive and file for communication?
So moved.
Is Jason seconding it? The one item is correspondence from Penflex, our third-party administrator for the service award program for the West Brighton Fire Protection District. As you know, the members of that district are no longer contracted, the members of the department no longer contract with the district to provide services, but the service award program remains in place pending final decision concerning the conclusion of that matter. I can say that at year end, as indicated in this report, that the service award program is almost exactly 100% fully funded. So we have a motion to receive and file that communication. Any further comments? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Committee reports. Louise, Parks and Recreation.
Parks and Recreation and Community Services Committee has not met since the last town board meeting. Our next meeting will be on Monday. I do not have that in front of me, I'm sorry. The 26th, is it?
Is that right?
Yes, Monday, the 26th,
Sixth.
at Brookside at 4:30 in the afternoon. But as part of the community services and the rec board, a committee has been formed to explore the construction of a winter market where currently the barns are sitting on the Buckland Park parcel. And the committee consists of myself as a town board representative, Becky Cotter from the Recreation Department, Sue Gardner-Smith, who is representing the farmers market and the community garden, and Dennis Conley, who's a member of the Recreation Board. And then the staff people were at these meetings were Ramsey Boehner, Mike Guyon, and Paul White. And we have thus far have reviewed the RFPs that have been sent in for somebody to see who's going to be doing the work, and we haven't concluded anything yet, but that's the beginning of the process.
I know you interviewed, and really at length, interviewed three potential, three finalists that your committee is going to be seriously considering and making a recommendation to us, and I thank you and particularly the civilian, if you will, members of the committee that did put a lot of time in those three interviews, and also, you know, the staff putting together the RFP in the first place.
Yes,
Thanks.
Mike did a really great job, as well as the rest of the staff, and it does. Each interview was about 2 hours or 2.5 hours long, so it took a lot of time, but it was very interesting.
Thank you,
Actually,
Louise.
Louise, I apologize. I gave you bad information. February 23rd is that last Monday.
I'm sorry, I'm not prepared. 23rd, Monday afternoon, for the next Parks and Recreation and Community Service Committee meeting.
And of course, that meeting is open to the public.
Open to the public, and it's at Brookside.
Finance Administrative Services, our chair, Chris Warner, is not here tonight, but Jason, are you
Yes,
handling this report?
I attended the Finance and Administrative Services Committee as the other member from the town board, and the items that were discussed at that meeting last Tuesday are all on tonight's agenda. And our next FASC meeting will be a week from yesterday, so that's February 17th. We meet at 3:30 in the afternoon in the Stage Conference Room, and the public is invited to attend.
Thanks very much, Jason. Keep going. Public safety.
Right, public safety, yes, public safety met yesterday. And after our networking with Brighton Ambulance, Brighton Fire, Public Works, Police, we discussed the public hearings that were voted on just tonight, the final review regarding the petitions for the speed limit reduction. And then we also followed up on a resident had brought up an issue regarding the CSX trains traveling through town and some concerns regarding emergency plans. And we talked about that right now there's a coordinated plan in effect countywide, because if something were to happen in one of our towns, it affects really our entire community. So our countywide public safety agencies do have a plan in place in the event the unthinkable happens. And also some of our local government entities are trying to organize a meeting with CSX in order to discuss legislative changes that are coming down the pike, and also to keep the communities advised as to what exactly is happening with that. So we are going to keep that as an item of old business and follow up as needed as there are developments with that. We also were advised that the fire marshal now has a Twitter feed, and I don't have his handle, though. I should have written that down. He'll be reaching out regarding business-related concerns.
If you search Brighton Fire Marshal, you will find
sure you'll find
Chris
him.
Roth.
Yes, exactly. Our next meeting of the Public Safety Committee will be on Tuesday, March 10th. We meet at 8 o'clock in the morning in the lower level community meeting room, and the public is invited to attend.
Thanks, Jason. One of the benefits of that meeting is having representatives of our emergency service agencies there, and Rick Tracy, who from the Brighton Fire Department, and of course the Brighton Department, in addition to serving a large part of the town of Brighton, also serves a portion of the town of Pittsford. And he spoke with us, and in particular he indicated that Pittsford Supervisor Bill Smith is also concerned, and in fact that their Public Safety Committee was engaged in a discussion of the CSX oil trains. I've spoken since that meeting with Supervisor Smith, and he is in fact, we discussed a variety of issues, in particular the fact that, there are a new model of tanker cars, but old cars that are much more vulnerable to puncture and the very serious results are still permitted to be used. And of course we've seen a couple of incidents, one in Quebec, as to the really horrific impact of a derailment involving some of these oil trains. There's been some concern that oil from the Bakken Shale in North Dakota, which is the origin of much of the oil that comes through us. Seems to be somewhat more flammable. I think they're all pretty flammable, but in particular somewhat more explosive, perhaps, just due to some chemical composition. But the long and the short of it is Supervisor Smith is very much interested, as you suggested, in continuing to work together. We're going to reach out to Fred Rickey from East Rochester. The line runs through East Rochester as well. And really engage CSX. We know that our federal delegation has also expressed concerns about rail safety, Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand, and so we'll be engaging them as well. This is a very, very important issue for the community. It was reassuring to get the presentation about the plans that are in place, as I've talked about many times. The interface and the way our emergency service providers work together is really a sight to behold. But knowing that it is something that they have on their radar, that they are training for and preparing for, is something. It's a great start, but I think we really need to make sure that CSX recognizes, understands just how seriously the communities that live along this main line take this problem.
Do all the local communities have the lights and the sirens at all of their crossings? And the gates?
I'm aware there are some may not have the mechanized that the more traveled roads do, but there are clearly warning signs at different intervals indicating that the train is coming up, or the railroad tracks are coming up.
Isn't that the reason that the last accident, not here, but it happened, that there was no gate or arm that went down?
There was a gate, and I know the federal government is currently investigating you're talking about the accident in Westchester County. They're looking at a number of factors that went wrong in this particular accident, and it was a mechanized crossing. The gates were working, and the vehicle, by all media accounts that I read, got trapped inside the gates.
Yeah, in fact, the gate, as I understand it, the gate may have hit the vehicle, but in any event, a sad event.
Yep. Supervisor, again, just to have that Fire Marshal Chris Roth's Twitter handle, so if everybody can follow at @TOB_Fire Marshal. Chris is very excited about this, and he's really been very enthusiastic about trying to find other ways to reach out to the residents, and some very good, interesting information every day that he's good tweets to follow.
He's trying to tweet, basically once a day, and Fire Marshal is one word in that.
Yes, with one L. That was his pet peeve.
MARSHAL. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Jason. Public Works, Jim.
Yes. The Public Works Committee met on Tuesday, February 3rd. At that time, under old business, we covered the discussion of sanitary sewers in the Westfall Heights area. The Department of Public Works staff requested that consideration be given for the preparation of an application to New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation, and this will initiate a process for potential funding of a sanitary sewer improvement project. This is also going to be on tonight's agenda. The next item was incentive zoning, the U of R South Campus IPD proposal, which we just touched on during the public hearing. And associated with that, as we said, is going to remain open until the next town council meeting. The next item was sustainability, the town code. The Department of Public Works staff updated the committee relative to a draft for solar energy ordinance, which is going to be referred to the planning board for an advisory opinion. So that's forthcoming. The next item was a grant for sidewalks. The Department of Public Works has requested a approval for a community development block grant application be authorized and submitted to the county for a sidewalk project along Crittenden Road between West Squire Drive and West Henrietta Road. That is also on the agenda for tonight. And lastly, I just want to remind everyone that the Public Works Committee are meeting now on the first Tuesday of each month as opposed to the first Monday. So the first Tuesday of each month, we'll meet in the lower level community meeting room at 9 o'clock in the morning. And the public, as we said, for all these committee meetings is open and most welcome to attend.
Thanks, Jim. You mentioned the U of R project again, and I meant to note and didn't, and will formally take action to incorporate this into the record of the public hearing. But at the last meeting, the university, as part of their presentation, used a PowerPoint slideshow, and that slideshow is now accessible on the town's website. It's in your packets this evening, but at the next meeting, I want to make sure we formally incorporate that into the record of the public hearing. Okay, we've completed our committee reports. We'll go to new business. Jason, reading and approval of the claims.
Yes, Bill, this evening I reviewed claims totaling the amount of $4,606,894.65. The notable claims included actually the pass-through to the Brighton Fire District. We collect the Brighton Fire District's taxes, and then we remit those monies over to the fire district. That amount was about $4.3 million. So that was the lion's share of the claims that were reviewed tonight. Additional claims included approximately $22,000 for new tablets for the police department, which were actually paid for with seized funds. So that's basically when funds are seized by law enforcement as a result of criminal activities. Through the approval of the Department of Justice, those funds are released in order to purchase equipment to further police activities. So the claims all appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Thank you, Jason. Louise seconded. I would certainly, speaking to the tablets, and I know Mark has talked about this, one of the things it's done is we now see those police reports, instead of written longhand, are generated through those tablets, and they are much, much easier to read. And I think it also makes, probably a little more thoughtful in terms of how they're put together in the first place.
Certainly, the output is tenfold in quality and professionalism, and actually tomorrow I hope to get some information out to the community about that and the fact that it was budget neutral and our plans in the future to go to a more digital environment.
Thanks, Mark. We have a motion and a second to approve the claims. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Jim?
Yes, the next item is to submit a authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with the government payment services to provide an online payment service for town court. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Jim, I'll let you do
Next
this
item
one,
is
too.
to submit an application to the Monroe County for a community development block grant to fund the remaining installation of 1,200 linear feet of sidewalk on the Crittenden Road area that we described in my report. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
As we've discussed before, we've used these community development block grants in a couple of recent occasions for sidewalk projects in West Brighton, particularly along Crittenden Road, where our goal when we complete all of the work is to be able to connect both the Crittenden apartments and also Rustic Village apartments to West Henrietta Road through sidewalks. If you drive along Crittenden Road, you will see the well-worn path that generations of residents of Rustic Village have worn. But it's all the more important these days with the Applied Technology Center of MCC there, the ability to safely walk on sidewalks between MCC's main Brighton campus and the Applied Technology campus is just one of the benefits of these sidewalks once they're completed. And of course, the ability to get to retail on Monroe Avenue, on West Henrietta Road, and also transit on West Henrietta Road is very, very important. So this is a great grant. I support it. And if our friends are listening, I hope that we receive funding in full so we can move forward with this project. We've been doing it, we've had to do it in segments because funding hasn't been enough to complete each block, but it's something we will complete, even if we have to do, still additional segments of work. Thank you, Tim, and your department for working on this. Anything further? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Louise?
The next matter is to approve to accept a donation of $500 from Noel A. Hollister in memory of Bessie Pyers to be used for the Brighton Senior Program. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Thank you very much for that very generous donation. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Jason?
Next matter is seeking approval to accept a donation of $500 from the Sam and Lottie Friedland Charitable Foundation Incorporated and to appropriate funds into the 2015 budget for the Brighton Police Citizens Academy. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Jason, you were at the kickoff
I was
session.
at the kickoff session. It was a sellout crowd. I believe there's about 25 students enrolled, and they were actually very animated. Lots of questions. Lots of questions. So I think that the police department is going to have a lot of fun this spring with these sessions, which are scheduled to end sometime in the first week of April. They'll go just about every week, and they'll have different field trips and different presentations made all throughout the way. I'd love to go, but most of those presentations are on Wednesday nights, which would conflict with our town board meetings.
Including tonight. I stopped
tonight.
down there tonight. They started early at 6 o'clock tonight, probably anticipating a long night. But yes, thank you, Mark, and certainly to the officers that make it such a success.
And actually, the citizen that contacted me relative to this donation, we had a phone conversation, and somebody this person knew was attending and thought very highly of the community outreach, and I assured this person that that was something that the town board had supported in our budget, that it was not necessary to make a donation, and that person wouldn't hear of that. And sent the check, and we're actually going to specifically put the money back in, and the participants don't know it, but they'll be getting a special commemorative token for participating in this, thanks to this donation. So.
Very nice. Thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept the donation. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Jim?
And the next item is authorize supervisor to execute a certificate of exemption form, TP 584, and a sidewalk easement agreement with the Brighton Central School District. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This is in connection with the GIGP, the Green Infrastructure Grant that we received from the state of New York, and will enable us to install porous sidewalks along the Monroe Avenue frontage of the middle school.
Yeah.
Part of a great project. Motion and a second we have here. Any further comments? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye, and our thanks to the Brighton Central School District for being a great partner with us on this project. Jim?
Next item is to approve approval to submit an application to the New York State Clean Water State Revolving Fund to support the proposed Westfall Heights Sanitary Sewer Project. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This relates, the Westfall Heights really has nothing to do with Westfall Road, but it is a neighborhood in West Brighton, Helen, Norman, and Bastion, who has expressed a strong interest in considering sewers, sanitary sewers in that neighborhood, which is currently served by septic systems. The only reason it is even remotely financially feasible is that it is not that far distant from an existing trunk facility. So what this application will allow us to do is make an application to the State Clean Water Revolving Fund for very long-term, very low interest rate funding to fund the potential construction of a sewer system in that neighborhood. And we'll have to see if we're successful, and if so, on what terms. And but it's one more step in seeking to answer the neighbors that have expressed to us their very strong interest in seeing sewers installed in their neighborhood. It's not unanimous, and it wouldn't make the connection to the homes, but it would provide the system that individual properties could then connect to with laterals and replace their, in some cases, failing septics. Anything further?
Tim, just for clarification, this would involve a pump system as opposed to gravity feed, right?
It'll be a combination, Jim. The collector system would be gravity that would ultimately end up at a pump station, because as the supervisor has referenced, the system that it would connect to that's existing is on the east side of the Lehigh Valley Trail, over by the St. Agnes building, that is the U of R alumni building. Okay. And these properties are to the west of the Lehigh Valley Trail. So there is you would have to overcome the grade difference, if you will, between the relative beginning and end points. Yeah. So it would be a combination thereof.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Tim. Anything further? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFonzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Jason?
Yes, the next matter seeks approval to solicit proposals to provide professional design services associated with proposed HVAC improvements to the Town Hall Public Safety Wing. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This is something that we have grappled with for many years.
We have.
The system there, a series of heat pumps, has been becoming obsolete, and we've had pumps fail. But more importantly, it really has not fully done what we had hoped that it would do, and there have been ongoing humidity and other problems in the public safety wing, particularly in the police department portion. This will commit to getting proposals for design services to design a replacement system for that. Any comments, questions? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFonzio? Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Jason?
Next matter is to authorize supervisor to execute an agreement with Monroe County for the 2015 Stop DWI Enforcement and Crackdown Weekends programs, with approval to amend the 2015 budget to support the addition and appropriation of associated funding. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
This is a program that we have participated in for many years, and we've discussed, and is an important part of our police services. I don't know if, Mark, you want to say anything more?
It's just something it's annual. It's part of Stop DWI, or any type of fine when somebody gets arrested, and our funding is kind of predicted for the next year. So when we propose a budget, our revenues don't usually match up, and that's what this is right now.
Thank you. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFonzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. One more police matter. Jason.
All right. The next matter seeks approval to reappropriate $14,000 in unspent 2014 police general funds to the 2015 law enforcement equipment account to support purchase of fingerprint system. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
And Mark, if you could Update us on this one.
I tried to plan that, things were going well at the end of the year. The technology, there was some systems that needed to interface. Long story short, I kind of hedged and said that maybe we'd get another couple years out of it. That lasted a couple weeks. We had a systems failure, actually a hardware failure, where the fingerprints used to be taken with a piece of glass and printer's ink. It's now all digital, and this represents the need to replace that digital fingerprint station. And in the upgrade of our new system, we have some requirements from New York State and the FBI of grabbing more of a greater part of the hand, and this system will do that.
Thank you. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePoncio?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Louise?
The next matter is to authorize various necessary budget transfers and amendments to the 2014 Town, Special District, and Capital budgets as part of the year-end closing process. I move on the resolution as recommended by the Attorney to the Town.
Second.
You have a list of these various budget transfers attached to the resolution. If you have any questions about any of them, our Finance Director, Suzanne Zaso, can address those. But if not, we have a motion and a second. This is something that we do every year to, to reconcile final year-end, spending to, to budgets.
I see it even goes down to $1. The town council line was off by $1.
That was just a little rounding with some pennies, but.
Yeah, it's, we appreciate the detail that goes into.
The town board, when you adopt the budget annually, you're adopting by what we call classification. So our personnel services, our capital and equipment is another classification, supplies, materials, that's another classification. So you need to stay within budget within those classifications. And if you go over $1, I need to find $1.
And you do. Thank you. Further questions or comments? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
DePoncio?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Louise?
The next matter is to authorize, which one am I on? Authorize, to approve, to reappropriate $35,000 in unspent 2014 general funds to the 2015 Town Park Facility Improvements account to support Carmen Clark Lodge 2015 improvements. I move on the resolution as prepared by the Attorney to the Town.
Second.
See, I get distracted with this.
Again, we've talked about this, so we're going to be making some much needed renovations in the Carmen Clark Lodge at the town park, putting in kitchen improvements, and our forces are going to be doing some work in the bathrooms, so should make the place look a little spiffier by the time the spring and summer season rolls along. Anything further? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePoncio?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Jason?
Next matter is to receive and file the proposed solar local law.
Nope.
No,
What
no,
about
no.
that?
Oh, sorry.
Now you're all getting.
Now I'm up. Okay.
You're ahead.
Next matter is authorize the closing of a 2011 Information Technology Capital Project for Town Hall, Public Works, and Highway Operations, and transfer any remaining funds to Debt Service Fund for any future debt service payments relating to project. I move we adopt the resolution as prepared by the Attorney to the Town.
Second.
Again, these are really finance, I hate to just call them paperwork, but they are necessary, accounting measures when this project has been completed.
Started in 2011, upgraded the phone system, a couple of software systems in our public works and highway sewer departments, and paid off the last of those expenditures in 2014. We have a few $1,000s left. We'll put that in the debt service fund to go towards paying off the debt.
Perfect.
Good. Good.
Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Louise.
The next matter is to receive and file proposed solar local law and refer to Planning Board for preparation of advisory report. I move on the resolution as prepared by the attorney to the town.
Second.
Our Sustainability Oversight Committee has worked and discussed with us the desirability of doing a solar local law. Currently, we do allow solar energy projects to be put on homes. We looked at a number of options here, and we thought it was important, notwithstanding the fact that we do allow them now, by putting this law in effect, we really give some better guidance, not only to our residents, but to our staff, as to some of the guidelines that we expect people to follow as they do these solar energy projects on homes. So we're going to pass it to the planning board for an advisory report. Once we get it back, I'm going to suggest we set a public hearing and go from there. Any comments? This is really just a procedural step. Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DeFanzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. And the last matter of new business is to receive and file the advisory report from the Planning Board for the incentive zoning application made by Woodstone Custom Homes, Inc. for a project known as Pinnacle Hills Subdivision. We've received the Planning Board advisory report, and we heard Mr. Coffey tonight, and we heard from some folks last night. We do have the engineer for the project proposal, Ed Perrone, here this evening. The Planning Board comments on a number of issues, in particular concern with the state wetland delineation. And it strikes me that pending some clear indication from the state DEC as to whether they are in fact going to conduct a review of the delineation of the wetlands, we really need to find out what their plans are. If in fact if in fact they do intend to review that delineation, it may affect the areas on which the applicant can build. We've also heard some comments from the neighbors about some things that they're interested in seeing, particularly an extension of the sanitary sewers that would be provided. So what I'm going to recommend that we do tonight is that we receive and file this advisory report, and you have a resolution to that effect. But I'm also going to ask our Commissioner of Public Works, Tim Keefe, this isn't in the resolution, it doesn't have to be, but I'm going to ask that you reach out to the state DEC to determine whether they do intend to review that wetland delineation. And if they do, to please do so expeditiously. I think that would be only fair to the developer. And Ed, is there anything you would like to say tonight?
Thank you for the opportunity. First of all, it was very interesting, and I appreciate, as people said earlier, I did not know about the Buffalo Soldiers. That was incredible. And I want to meet that gentleman, the Tuskegee Airman. I walked in with him, and he was an interesting character. The only thing that I would say is I had conversation this afternoon with Ramsey Boehner relative to the DEC comment, and he has found in his records, and I think, Tim, I think you're aware of this, that this came up once before, and DEC was questioned to do that, and they kept saying they would do it. Yep. That was over 10 years ago. We think, to the board to consider, that quite honestly, it really is probably not a very big interest to them because it doesn't define to meet the 12.6 acres of land that would be their requirements for a DEC wetland. So, and I understand that the board needs to do their due diligence because the planning board, the question came up by the residents to ask that question. But it's our sense that we really don't think that they're short of staff. I just don't think that they're going to be bothered with this. And I agree with you, and I would certainly ask that they clearly understand that time is of the essence with this. We can't wait month after month for them to decide whether they're going to do it or not. That's the only fear that we have. We understand you got to check it. I have no problem with that. And the other thing is Mr. Coffey and I have had many discussions relative to the sewer issue, and that's something that certainly I will broach our client with that. There are ways in which that can be, I suppose, negotiated, if you will. That could be of some solace. But as far as the only other question I have, Bill, at this point in time is, and to the board, and Ramsey wasn't sure either, now that you accept this letter from the planning board, what would be the next step? Do we need to go back? Would you want us to go back to the Public Works Committee, Jim's committee, to discuss this so that we can start to move the process more?
I think probably so. And to the extent that you might have some additional information from your client as it relates to potential sewers on Midland,
right.
That certainly might be something that it's time, that it would be a good time to discuss in Public Works. There were some other issues that were discussed in the planning board report.
Ramsey did make me aware of some of them, yeah.
Okay.
He did
specifically the issue with potential alienation of parkland with the easement.
Correct. I will do that again. I have indicated to Ramsey and other projects that we've had to cross parkland that we are able to do that with utilities, okay? Certainly we'll check that out with legal counsel again. The only other thing that, and we need a little direction if we need to, and I'm not sure this board needs to go any farther. Maybe it's a planning function. I'm looking for guidance, I really am. They talked seriously, there was a very large discussion about connectivity.
Yes, they did.
And we were provided we've provided many alternates and alternatives which they wanted from us and we gave them. And then one of the board members actually came up with a pseudo sketch of some of the plans that we had.
And I believe that's attached. That's one of the sketches that's attached to the letter.
Yes, it is. And the question is, does this board need any more definition on that issue, or do we leave it as is for now as it goes through the incentive zoning? I need direction there. I really, and Ramsey wasn't sure either what you all would be looking for.
Well, obviously, ultimately, when, if this board takes a vote on that proposal, we're going to have made a judgment as to which of those different configurations makes the most sense in light of the totality of the situation. It's not clear to me, and I'm sure it's not clear to you from reviewing the letter, which of those two potential options is preferred by the planning board, or whether there are other possible options. I don't know, but those were the two that were passed on by the planning board.
I could share this. There was another plan that described 25 lots that the chairperson, Bill Price, felt that was what he was envisioning, but he recognized the fact of using these other two sketches he could live with those things. In other words, he felt that those were still appropriate. They were pretty strong about the connectivity. They really were strong about connectivity.
Yes, that's what I understand.
I know the neighbors were not pleased about that. It was made very clear to us, so that's something that we were trying to do with the plan that we have, is to respect their privacy, but the planning board is looking out for the town's best interest over the long haul.
And we will, this board will balance the concerns of the neighbors, the interests in transportation connectivity that I know were important to the planning board. And if in fact the project goes ahead and is voted on, those are the sort of counterbalancing issues. So I think it's fair to say at this point we have not only the existing proposal, which does not connect the two streets, as well as two potential configurations that do.
Okay.
And as we move forward, we're not bound, this board is not bound by the planning board's report, although we certainly respect their input. It's important.
Right.
This is what they do. So,
Okay.
we're going to have to evaluate it, and I think certainly that the Public Works Committee, where we have the opportunity to really drill down into this stuff, is exactly the place to have some further dialogue.
Should I check with Ramsey or ask Jim now that we be on the agenda for the first Tuesday in March?
Oh, we could, yes.
Would that be
Tim?
suffice, Tim?
Yeah, sure. Done.
So it's done.
We will do that.
We'll be on the agenda for the, it's still at 9 a.m. in the morning? 9 a.m., okay.
Yes, it's first Tuesday.
Yes, I got that down, first Tuesday. First Tuesday in March.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
I'll go
Thanks, Ed.
home now.
Can I have a motion then to receive and file this advisory report from the planning board?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Matters of the supervisor, the expense and revenue report for the month ending January 31st, 2015. As always, we will have a more formal report at the end of the first quarter, but that expense and revenue report is available, and can I have a motion to receive and file it?
So moved.
Second.
Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Novros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy?
Aye. Good night, Ed. A couple things that I'd like to talk about, or in one case, really have our Commissioner of Public Works talk about. We have had a lot of snow in the past 2 weeks or so. Not as much maybe as Boston, but significant snow, enough that it has impacted all of our lives. We do have one of our highway department workers here with us, and it's always good to see you, Bob. I'd like to, because your office has gotten calls, I've gotten calls. The job of snow removal is a big one. We're plowing and salting arterial roads, neighborhood streets, our sidewalk system. I got a call at the height of the snowstorm wanting to know about, just how we handle sidewalks in town from DNC. And of course, we have countless numbers of private contractors that are plowing homes and businesses. And if we could, adjust the time-space continuum so that those three were all working at the same time, and we would never have any piles left by one getting in the way of the next one or blocking the person wanting to use the sidewalk or anything else. But Tim, if you could just talk a little bit about what we are doing as a town to keep our streets and highways and sidewalks passable, and we can have a little bit of a little dialogue here about that.
I'd be happy to, and I know for the most part, the folks not only that live in town but that travel through town are very appreciative of how well the highway crews keep the roads clear. I think you can travel into our adjoining neighbors, and generally you'll see the difference. So the highway and actually, some of the sewer department, do help out at times. They take a high level of interest and a lot of pride in doing a very good job. And we appreciate that too. We think that they do an extraordinary job when it comes to snow and ice control. One of the problems that we've had, you and I have had lengthy discussions on this at times, but years ago, and I think if you have lived in the area for a good share of your life when you were younger, not as many people had private plow contractors to do their driveways. And that has necessitated, a rethinking on everyone's part, because we tend to get a lot of calls, particularly after this last weekend. But you're right, we've had a couple of good snow events in February after a fairly mild January, that people, and maybe it's just because where we're at in the winter and patiences have grown thin and people are ready for the groundhog to be lynched and we move on to springtime. But, our
6
plows.
more months of winter, right? Isn't that what the groundhog said?
Pretty much. I think we do leaf season and we do winter around here now. But our primary duty and our primary function and obligation to the public is to keep the public streets passable. That does entail plowing the streets at all hours, many times.
3:30.
Yeah, many times.
3:30 a.m. Our crews
many
reported,
times.
I know.
I get the notice
the other day.
At anywhere between 2:30, 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning, our crews have mobilized and we were out in full force. We get out early. Sometimes we're there before the sidewalk. The private plow contractors. But in some instances, like this past weekend, we were out all weekend. So your plow contractor would have come through, before or after us, and we would have plowed you back in. There was quite a bit of snow. We had probably 15 plus inches, depending on where you were, probably closer to 18 inches, according to the reports. And that was about the same for, I believe, the storm that preceded us by a week and a half or 2 weeks. So there's a lot of snow out there. The property owners, all property owners are responsible for the ends of their driveways. And I know people don't like to hear that because the stuff that gets pushed into their driveway is generally heavy. It's a large amount. It plugs the driveways. And one of the things that we're dealing with is an aging population in town, and we're not insensitive to that, believe me. We are very sensitive to that. However, by law, we cannot begift public funds to take care of private properties. I think that would be something that you, the other town board members, and the town attorney would remind us of all the time. But we do try to be sensitive to that when we're plowing. But the fact of the matter is that it's a large-scale operation. There's a lot of snow. We have to keep the roads clear. If you have a plow contractor, you should have a callback clause in your contract, whether that costs you more money or not. But it's something that, is probably helpful so that you can get your driveway unplugged. We do have sidewalk snow plows that we do that also do a very similar function as the street plows, and those two can create similar concerns. If, like you said, in the perfect space-time continuum, we were able to have our plows go out first, and then everybody else did their plowing afterwards, that would be great. But when the plows were out, and I can say, Bob, you were probably out pretty much all weekend once it started, numerous trips. Yep, right. So we're continually making passes through town. It's not just we do one pass and we're done. We're continually making passes through town. So we have to ask that people understand this. I know when I was young, living in this area, probably a neighbor to Jason over on the west side of the county. As a young person, that was one of the ways you earned money. You went out and you shoveled driveways because not many people had snow blowers or private plow contractors. So I think people have gotten to the point that they may not have the wherewithal, whether it's shovels, the equipment to go out and unplug it, or their contractor. So we have to be cognizant of that. from a community-wide standpoint. It's not something that the town can do. We're not equipped to do it, nor can we legally do that. I know there are tough areas when you live on a cul-de-sac or you live on a corner or a curve. You know, you might get more snow than your neighbor. That's not something that we've done purposely. It's just the way we've set up our plow routes. Our plow routes have been determined by a computer application. So we can't, you know, change those readily without disrupting our entire operation. And we are trying to be as efficient as we can, but many times we're not an efficient operation because, you know, again, we're trying to take care of the public safety and the public needs of people, you know, coming through town. The one thing that we have found, and I will say that if you have a plow contractor that is piling stuff up that block your sidewalk, we will send a letter out to the property owner, or if we know who the contractor is, by your visual observation, we will send a nice courtesy letter to them to remind them of what they can and can't do. But we find that the hydrants are, you know, plowed over. We find that street lamps are plowed against, or town street trees are plowed against. The contractor should be keeping the snow on the individual's property that they are plowing. They shouldn't be pushing it across the street. They shouldn't be leaving it in the street. We find many times they just, you know, plow out the driveway, pick up their plow, and they leave. And that's you know, an issue that I know Bob does run one of the routes, and that is dangerous. That is not only dangerous, you know, for any kind of motorists that have to drive into that, but also for our plows because, you know, depending on what's left in the road, you never know what it's going to be. And we did get an interesting communication, which you forwarded on to me, about the refuse collectors and how they're leaving the blue boxes in the toters and everything else, and whether they're in the road or not. The day after you gave me that, we were getting a number of calls of damaged toters and recycling boxes that the plows were, you know, taking out because they were in the roadway. And we have contacted the waste haulers, asked them to talk to their crews, because it's not just the stuff being left in the road, but when that comes off for the wing of the plow and gets launched, it becomes a projectile. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of things that could happen. So our folks can probably do as good a job as they can, but they can't stop for every situation that comes up, particularly if you've ever taken a ride, which a lot of the board members have.
Great experience.
You cannot see that far in front of you at times, depending on the type of snow, the wind, the time of the day, and a number of other things. So anything that gets in the roadway becomes, something that could be easily sent off in any direction to damage property or individuals if they're out.
And it becomes a hazard to our drivers.
And it's a hazard to our drivers as well. And I would also say with this that I would certainly remind any pedestrians that if a plow's coming down the street, you need to move back. You can't stand at the edge of the street expecting the plow to slow down or move around you. And it's not because they're trying to cause damage, but it's because they need to keep their speed up and the momentum to keep the plow operation going. So there's another thing that you have to be aware of, and you have to be courteous and respectful and step back. Our folks are trying to do their job. It's not, they're not out there as perceived as being reckless and driving too fast for conditions. It is something you have to do with a very large vehicle that weighs probably well over 40,000 pounds when it's fully loaded, and it's not the easiest thing to control. But our folks do such a good job because they're trained and they're conscientious, and we have a very good track record. But everybody has to respect everybody else that's out there when we're doing our plowing operation. It isn't an easy thing to do. People must think it's easy because they see us do such a good job. Maybe that's what it is. But it's all about respect and courtesy that we need to have as drivers or pedestrians using the public right-of-way and the public roads, is that you should see, and this goes for each of us driving a private car too, you need to be aware of your surroundings. You need to be courteous. You need to look ahead, particularly at crosswalks when you're turning and things of that nature. Don't use your cell phone. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but everything out there is really about respect and courtesy of the other people. This is not about you as an individual and the me. It's about us all getting along in a very compatible situation and sharing the road.
Visibility is seriously impaired when
It
the
is.
piles get as high as they are.
They are.
When we get a chance, we do try to knock some of them down a little bit. It is, I understand sometimes people feel the need, and particularly with our disabled community, to be walking in the street rather than in the sidewalks. The sidewalk plowing is a very important part of what we do. But again, we know that sometimes the interplay between snow being thrown by our plows can again cover up some of the sidewalks. Our crews continue to be out there working, even though, well, until a couple hours ago, it hadn't snowed in any significant amount in a couple days.
Right.
But
One
they
of the key
continue to
factors-
be out.
One of the key factors, let's remember, when you're going end to end, this town is about 13.7 miles end to end. And we have, what, over 6,000 residents?
Oh, yeah, we have 36,000.
37,000
No, I'm
properties.
residential, locations.
Yeah, properties.
Oh,
right.
If we
You're
stopped
about
and
right,
tried to
Jim.
plow and clear everybody's driveway, you would not get the streets cleared.
Yep, that's right.
I have a
So just
question.
keep that in mind, you know.
Louise?
I have a question. We're right next to our driveway, which is the lawn
Yeah, the
between the
tree lawn,
sidewalk and
yep.
the tree lawn. The snow is about 10 feet high. I don't know. And who's responsible for keeping that lower so that you can, I mean, if I were to go out there with the shovel, it would either go on the sidewalk or the street. And both,
Which are both illegal.
Right.
And Mark would have a police cruiser down to arrest you.
at this point, that wouldn't be
There's
so
nowhere
bad.
else to put it. I'm only
It's
kidding,
tough, it's
but
tough,
it
Louise.
is. This goes back to the fact that we've had many mild winters over the years, and when we get winters like this, I know people get frustrated. I think we're all trying to coexist together and make things work. As you know, Bill was saying, as Bob will tell you, we'll go out depending on where we are, and we will try to wing down some of those areas right adjacent to the curb if it gets too high. We know that that's a favorite spot for plow operators, the private plow operators that put snow too. So we may get around to it, we may not, but if you have a visibility problem, it may be incumbent upon you to try to, knock that down a little bit and, put it, move the snow so it's just a little bit more visibility. But again, use caution, back out or drive out of your driveway slowly, watch out for pedestrians on the sidewalk.
And in the street.
Yeah, and you're right, and I can't stress enough, and I was talking to Becky Cotter, our recreation director, it's a sign that they have over at the Brookside School that says, seasonal conditions, and it's just like the signs you see sometimes, sensible salting requires sensible driving. Everybody needs to drive in a very I guess, appropriate manner for the road conditions. I was passed by someone the other day on East Avenue, and they were doing probably 55 or 60, and this was on Monday when it was snowing.
I heard.
And it was just, I know they had a four-wheel drive vehicle, but if something happened, there was no way they could react in time, and it was just amazing that, they felt the need to drive that fast. I don't know why.
Someone mentioned it before, the plowing out or shoveling out fire hydrants. I saw on the news last night the Rochester Fire Department going around, or the Brighton Fire Department is doing the same thing. If you have a fire hydrant in your front yard, in your tree lawn, or even if it's in a neighbor's front lawn, a real good deed is to shovel it out and shovel out a couple feet around it. They were saying 4 feet around it to enable the couplings and the hoses to connect to it. I heard a wonderful story of some Brighton High School students who took advantage of the snow day that they got with the last storm and went out shoveling out hydrants. Good for them, great, that's what I love and that's what I expect out of our Brighton students. Bob, did you want to say something? If you can come up to the podium.
Back up my boss a little bit and just tell you the two biggest problems in town are plow jockeys that plow across the street.
Yep.
In this weather, they can't push it up over things. So most of it sits in the street. We come by and we fill up their neighbor's driveway. Their neighbor, I had a lady come out to me and she was upset. And I said, it's not my fault, I gotta clear the road. But your neighbor is the problem, and it's against the law to push snow across the street. And what the bosses have been doing is get us a license plate number, because most of these trucks are unmarked. And, or, you know, if they're a contractor, we'll give them the name and they'll go talk to them. You know, I have Clover Lawn. I told them, I don't want to ever see you push across the street on my property, or you won't be my contractor anymore. The other thing that's a real problem, and it's a problem in Roselawn, Bel Air, are parked cars.
Absolutely.
Parked cars, because what happens is that we have to go around them. Sometimes we have to lift the wings up. That means you're going to leave a pile of snow behind the car. I don't know what they think they're protecting. And then when they leave for work, we take that snow and dump it in their driveway anyways. And there's a lot more of it because we've been going around the car.
We had that conversation at the Public Safety Committee meeting. Mark, if you can update us on law enforcement.
You know, we can communicate with Highway. There's certainly a town ordinance that prohibits parking during the winter from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. We have gone into an enforcement mode. We started out in November to educate. We are finding the same cars that are parked overnight. Now we'll take it a step further. If it's a plow operation, we'll work with your staff. We'll coordinate at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. We'll contact the owner of the vehicle, give them an opportunity to move the vehicle. If it's obstructing plow operations, we'll look at the possibility of removing the vehicle under our authority out of the roadway if it's a hindrance or a public safety. I think we're at the point now we need to work a little bit closer together with coordination, find the problematic areas, and we certainly can address it through enforcement or removing the vehicle.
We will ticket or tow, so please take your cars off the street. Do not park them overnight during the winter.
And let me just say something about the sidewalk tractors. Our management has done, and our sidewalk operators are all employees of the highway department. Not only did they plow them all, but the last 3 days they put the snow blowers on them, and they've been blowing the snow so that they're almost down to the pavement or pretty close to it. And they've been doing this religiously. They're out there all day long. And I was on a crew today, we were hauling snow out of cul-de-sacs, okay, which we will do. And we also had another crew, we actually had a sight line problem at one of the temples, and we removed the snow underneath 10 feet of snow from a driveway plow. There was a fire hydrant, so I sent the fire chief a text saying, hey, we cleaned one out for you. They never would have found it.
No, and that's great, Bob, because we talked about that at Public Safety too. So no matter where the calls come in, and I know the fire department gets calls about the hydrants, you know, and we get calls, I know you get calls over at the dispatch for whether it's mailboxes or, you know, hydrants or private plow operators. If, you know, and I have a link on the town's website.
Tim, can you share our 24-hour phone number?
Oh, the 24-hour, because as you said, we have a dispatcher on from November to April 15th every winter season, and it's 784-5280. So if something happens, particularly I like to say the mailboxes, if your mailbox gets taken out, and a lot of times it's not hit by the plow, but the snow coming off the wing will take it out. We will try to get out there and repair it or make some type of accommodation so that you can get your mail. But call the number, don't email. Emails sometimes sits around for 10, 12 hours before people see it. But a call to the dispatcher will generally get you better service. But again, I have a link on the town's website. If you care to email me with issues with private plow contractors with information of addresses or the contractor themselves and what's going on, we would be happy to send out a good neighbor letter. And the only two things I want to close with is that if you create a spot, just if you want to call it upstream of your driveway, before the plow gets to your driveway, where you've taken an area that might be 4 or 5 feet deep versus maybe about 6 to 8 feet long, the plow wing will unload a lot of the snow before it gets to your driveway. So that comes off, and then you will probably have less in your driveway to take care of. It does create a little more work for you, but then on the other hand, if it helps you out for getting your car in and out, then that's great. And I'll take a little play on words here, but I think this is a great opportunity to say what was famously said a number of years ago, and I think this is sort of Bill's motto as well, is ask not what the town of Brighton can do for you, but what you can do for the town of Brighton to make this, thing work, because we can't do everything. Well, as hard as we work and as hard as we try, we're limited as to the scope of what we can do, but also, the budget and what we are charged with doing as a town to provide, public service. So we can't really get into a lot of the private things people would love for us to do.
But I will second where this all started, and thank you, Bob, for being here tonight.
One other thing is that all our plow trucks in the subdivisions, they aren't going much more than 20 miles an hour, because we've got to be able to compensate if someone pulls out of their driveway. We just can't just hit them. We got to be able to stop and stop safely. And even the main road trucks aren't going much over 30, 35, because the augers won't keep up with the demand. They run off the PTOs of the trucks. They won't keep up with the demand, and they'll go into auger error and shut off. So we're not fast moving like they are on the expressway. Even on the expressway, they're only going 45 or so. But anything the residents can do to help us out. And the other thing, about, as far as sightlines go, today I tried to pull out a Penarrow Road on my way to work. I couldn't see the traffic, so I had to inch out. Okay? Well, think about what it's like when we got a plow 3 or 4 feet in front of us, and we've got to inch out. It's tough, even though trucks are taller. Some of these snowbanks and some of these businesses are piled up so high we can't see. So everybody needs to slow down and take their time.
It truly is a collective team effort for all of us to make this work, and we try to do the best job we can. And it's incumbent upon all of us to just be there, courteous, help. What can you do? What should you do? And let us do our job. And we did a good plow video a year or two ago, and I got to make sure that thing's still running, because one of our drivers, Chris Podorski, he was the driver, and he more or less narrated what was going on. And you can see how there's just I'm not going to say disregard, but there's it's just become, I guess, very commonplace when you see the truck that you pull up. You're in the blind spot, you're underneath the wing, you're not giving really a courteous look-see at a large vehicle that is doing a job, because we're not paying attention.
That's my strongest and most important takeaway from my first year as supervisor trip with a plow, and that is, however far you think you ought to be away, and this is a matter of respect, it's a matter of safety. However far you think you ought to be away from that plow, double it, because you are not far enough away. And that is a big piece of equipment. The momentum is tremendous. The driving conditions and the visibility conditions are lousy. And if there's one thing we can all do to help out, that would be it. So again, Bob, thank you very much. Thanks for being here. Thanks to everybody that is out.
I'm sure if any of the town board members want to get a first-hand look, I'm sure Tim can arrange it during the day. We have a number of one-man trucks, so there's an open seat there. And I happen to have a two-man truck, so my helper probably wouldn't like someone kicking him out.
I just want to say one thing about the toters. I put mine in my driveway now because there's no place else to put it. And the people, I'm sure that were the ones that have been hit, have been where they don't usually go. So as they come at 7:30 in the morning at my house, so you got to be able to be willing to get up and get them back as quickly as possible. I'm sure you do.
The only way they get hit is around the middle of the road. Then they're in obstruction in the roadway. Really, most guys go around them. They don't want to hit them because you don't know if they're full of garbage or not.
Right, and Waste Management doesn't want to spend the time to put them back in my driveway, so.
Right, too. When the garbage contractors empty them, they leave them out farther than
They do.
the residents put them out.
Right.
They do.
Well, okay, I think we're going to have some more winter, so please,
as we speak,
please keep working together to make this whole system work. I do want to talk about one more thing under matters of the supervisor. And it is the subject that will be in, assuming that it gets printed, as they usually do in this week's Brighton Pittsford Post. The town board, at the end of last year, passed a local law that I think is very important and I want to highlight for the community. And that is our Town of Brighton Gender Law, Gender Expression Non-Discrimination Act. This is a law that the state of New York has, frankly, failed, particularly the state Senate. The state Assembly has passed this law repeatedly. The state Senate hasn't had the guts, and I don't mind saying that, hasn't had the guts to even allow it to come to a vote. What Gender is a law that extends the same civil rights that are given to the disabled, to women, to people of color, really to all of us. Extends that to our transgender population. And right now, through most of New York State, people who are transgender have no protection under civil rights laws if they're fired, have no protection if a restaurant chooses not to serve them, or a hotel chooses not to rent them a room. That's wrong. Those are basic civil rights that are given to all people. I do not understand why the state Senate continually refuses not to take action. The town board in the town of Brighton did not feel, we've encouraged the state to make those rights available statewide. Because we can't ourselves make that happen, we have done that townwide. And I want to report to the community, to residents, but it applies, to non-residents who are in the town of Brighton. You have these protections. And I think it's important that our business community be aware of this as well, that under Brighton's law, all of us, including the town of Brighton, because the town itself, we specifically, there's a lot of criticism sometimes. Congress maybe passes laws that they say don't apply to them. We didn't do that. We made it expressly clear that this law does apply to the town of Brighton, that transgender individuals and other people who have gender expression different than the gender that they may have been born into have civil rights in the town of Brighton. And so we just want to remind people of that. And that is just a fundamental civil right, and it's something I write about in tomorrow's paper. But I think all of you deserve credit for unanimously passing that legislation and taking one more step to honor Brighton's diversity and to make this a better place for all of our residents and really everybody else who comes into our community to live in. So that's that. Those are the matters of the supervisor. Matters of the town attorney.
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
Matters of the clerk.
I know obviously the snow issue was talked about at length, but just the one thing that Bob touched on, but I think is important, and I had this experience myself, if your plow contractor pushes it across the sidewalk or pushes across here somewhere there isn't, call them, tell them. They may not know their drivers are doing it, and certainly it's in their best interest to protect their customers and not lose their customers going forward. That and my contractor went a little afoul of the law on that first storm. Gave him a quick call and just reminded, and ever since they've been great. So.
Good reminder. Thanks, Dan. Matters of the town board.
Nope.
Thank you to our cable television crews for these meetings are a little bit tougher when we have proclamations and presentations. Thank you for your work. Can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss the employment of particular people and collective bargaining?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Vogel?
Aye.
Councilmember Noveros?
Aye.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Supervisor Manley?
Aye. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight and invite you to our next town board meeting, February 25th.
Thanks, Chief.
2015, right here at 7 o'clock in the evening. We won't be coming back into open session after the executive session. So have a great night, everybody.